Election night in Utah. The polls are closed and votes are being counted.
We're really eager to see the results tonight.
It's been a good day. It's been a quiet day.
The most important race in Utah is playing out tonight.
We do think it will come down to who turns out to vote.
Republican facing a Democrat pretending to be an independent is quite another.
We are live with Senator Mike Lee and Evan McMullin as the heated race for Senate is decided.
Long lines with people still wanting to vote lead to some delays in election night results.
Tracking slick roads on election day night. Coming up, I'll let you know when we're going to see our heaviest precipitation arriving and what you can expect for your Wednesday morning commute.
And across the country tonight, the teetering balance of power between Republicans and Democrats.
We'll show you what's at stake in Washington. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our extended election coverage tonight on Fox 13 News at 9. I'm Kelly Chapman.
And I'm Bob Evans. We're tracking results in real time right now, including the big race here in Utah for a seat in the U.S. Senate. Here is where that race between incumbent Republican Senator Mike Lee and unaffiliated challenger Evan McMullin stands at this moment. With two counties reporting, Kelly, this is where it stands.
Yes, 80% for Mike Lee, 17% for Evan McMullin. This is Juab and Beaver County reporting results. Of course, we have a long way to go tonight.
In fact, we are just getting word right now that Salt Lake County is reporting their numbers. We'll get to those in just a moment.
In the meantime, we do have full team coverage for you tonight. Political reporter Ben Winslow is tracking numerous races currently. Jenna Bree is at the Utah Democratic Party's gathering, and Emily Tenser is at Evan McMullin's watch party right now.
But we start with Fox 13 News anchor Brian Schnee live at the Republican election night party in downtown Salt Lake. Brian.
Hey, Bob. Downtown Salt Lake City, the rain not keeping anybody away. It's packed here in the Hyatt Regency. As expected, we do know about those early results from just a few counties. They're expecting it here to stay that way. Obviously, polls were showing everybody here is red, as Brad Wilson just said on stage here a few minutes ago. Let's show you what the building looks like tonight. A lot of standing around because they're waiting for those election results to drop. We spoke with Congressman John Curtis earlier tonight about how he's feeling.
Well, the first political change will be the political ads will be over tomorrow. Everybody's looking forward to that. The second thing is, look, we've got a plan to go back there, rein in the spending, loosen up the supply chain. That's going to do more to bring down those inflations, the interest rates than anything we're doing. And we just need to get back there and get it going.
Early results just showing up here in the building, showing Mike Lee at about 70%. Of course, really early reporting. We'll join you in just a few minutes here live, coming up at 9:30. For now, we're live in downtown Salt Lake City. Brian Schnee, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Brian,
looks like a packed house there.
Yeah.
Let's go now to Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenser.
She is live at the Mid-Valley Performing Arts Center in Taylorsville, the site of the McMullin campaign's gathering tonight. Emily.
Bob, Kelly, as we wait for more results to roll in, the energy is definitely high here. Initial poll predictions have these candidates just being a few points apart. And those predictions, that's what these Evan McMullin supporters are latching on to right now before numbers can make it a reality. The independent candidate arrived about an hour and a half ago and has been making his rounds, mingling with his voters. He has yet to speak at the podium, but we did speak to a spokesperson of his who tells me that McMullin is here to commit to the Constitution. McMullin says too many politicians are too loyal to their party and special interest groups. If he wins, he says he refuses to caucus to one side. He wants to find common ground among Utahns from all areas of the political spectrum.
Evan provides a more unifying approach to moving forward. He's not about being a rubber stamp for Democrats or Republicans. He wants to solve problems, he wants to find bipartisan solutions, and he wants to stand up to the special interest groups that have had far too much influence in our politics.
McMullin ran for president as an independent candidate back in 2016, and actually his current opponent, Senator Mike Lee, voted for him then 6 years ago. Now, the initial results have just started coming in, and we'll be here all night as they continue to roll in. But for now, we're going to send it back to you guys in the studio. Emily Tenser reporting live in Taylorsville, Fox 13 News, Utah.
All right, Emily, thanks so much. Let's bring in Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow.
Ben, let's get right to the numbers.
Yeah, we are starting to get the counties that are coming in. So far, 6 counties have come in. I've got Juab, Millard, Rich, Davis, Garfield, and Paiute. We're obviously waiting for some big counties like Salt Lake and Utah County, but this is the results that you're seeing so far. That graphic actually hasn't updated yet. That was as of 2 counties ago, showing Mike Lee with 80% and 17% for Evan McMullin. The race is obviously shifting a little bit, and the information that we have now is showing that Mike Lee is at about 60%. With Evan McMullin at about 37% of the vote, but that's based again on 6 counties coming in. This is where things stand with House District 1, which is Blake Moore. This is a big chunk of northern Utah, 75% going to Blake Moore, the incumbent Republican, against Democratic challenger Rick Jones with 25%. House District 2, this is where things are shaping up based upon the numbers we have. Obviously, Davis County down into St. George. This spans a huge chunk of the state. Incumbent Republican Congressman Chris Stewart very much in the lead here with 67% of the vote to Nick Mitchell, the Democratic candidate's 26%, and the United Utah Party and Constitution Party after that. 3rd District, we don't have any of the counties in. This is why you're seeing on your screen a bunch of 0% on this, because the 3rd District counties, which incorporate everything from Summit County all the way down into southeastern Utah, just not there. House District 4, this is where things are shaping up based again upon the counties reporting so far. 86% of the vote going right now, again based on those counties, to Burgess Owens, 10% for Democrat Darlene McDonald. And in Constitutional Amendment A, this is where things stand right now against a large number. Again, this is based on the counties reporting so far. You can see a limited number of ballots being reported statewide on your screen there. This could change. We don't know. We'll see what's happening with this one. We're going to be tracking all of these numbers, some important down-ticket races in the legislature, as well as county-level races, and some important propositions, including a school district split, a $595 million bond in the Alpine School District. We're going to be crunching these numbers. We'll bring you the latest results coming up.
A lot to continue to watch, Ben. Thanks so much. I want to go back to the big Senate race in Utah tonight. The Democrats did not field a candidate in the Senate race against incumbent Utah Senator Mike Lee. Instead, they're backing unaffiliated candidate Evan McMullin.
Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree is with the Democrats at the Salt Lake City Sheraton Hotel tonight as they watch the results come in. Jenna.
That's right, Bob and Kelly. I'm here at the Utah Democratic Party's election night party, and although the crowd might not be as big and loud as those at those U.S. Senate watch parties, there are still several key races that people here have their eyes on. Local races. Those include the Salt Lake County Clerk, District Attorney, Sheriff, and Council races, as well as House Districts 10, 30, and 69. I spoke with Utah Democrats about their feelings going into the night. They're feeling optimistic about their candidates' chances in this election.
I mean, in 2020, there were precincts around Brigham Young University that saw a huge shift towards Joe Biden because of those younger, more progressive voters. And so I think we hope to see some of that happen this year and in elections to come.
Multiple of those candidates here tonight. We expect to be hearing from them later on. The crowd here growing a little bit bigger as we're expecting those results to be coming in any minute now. Reporting live in Salt Lake City, Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
All right, Jenna, thank you so much.
We have had very active weather across the state today on this election day. It may have affected voter turnout in some places. That's soon to be found out. Allison, tell us what's next.
All right, so tonight our heaviest precipitation is still on the way. And what you can expect if you're on the roads over the next few hours will continue to be some areas of low visibility and some very slick driving conditions. Temperatures will hang close to 45 to 50 for much of the night here in Salt Lake City. And we have seen some very heavy precipitation right now, mainly over the Great Salt Lake Lake and Antelope Island as we bring you a better view right here from Salt Lake City I-80 all the way up towards Brigham City. We have some very strong areas of heavy rainfall. We've had some very gusty winds today, and we will continue seeing the precipitation filling in into our overnight hours. For southwest Utah along our I-15 corridor from I-70 down through Washington County, mainly rain so far with snow, Bryan Head, Panguitch up towards Circleville. And we look at our wind gust forecast through tonight. We'll keep things really strong in southern and eastern Utah. In fact, for all of you tomorrow morning waking up, wind will be about 20 to 25 miles per hour for much of the state, closer to 40 miles per hour in eastern Utah. Hour by hour, our storm, the bulk of this frontal boundary arrives. We switch over to snow for tomorrow morning. We could have a very tough commute. We'll talk more about the timing of the precipitation and also what you can expect for storm totals coming up.
Allison, thanks. Well, first, Google sent voters to the wrong Weber County location. Then the county responded. We'll show you what they did.
And we'll go in depth with this man, Jason Perry, director of the Hinckley Institute of Politics at the University of Utah, about this historic midterm election. Fox 13 News extended team coverage of election 2022 continues right after this.
Glad you're with us tonight. After voting websites directed people to the wrong polling place today in Weber County, election officials, they took action and opened a last-minute site for people trickling in just before polls closed at 8 o'clock tonight.
The Weber County Elections Office says they made a mistake and listed the Weber Center in Ogden as the polling site for voting in person. But that was only for early voting, and people were supposed to go to the fairgrounds today, but did not know that.
On the website, they actually put the wrong address. So we went all the way from like 24th Street in Ogden all the way out here. But we made it, so that's what counts.
Election officials say the Weber Center location was not equipped to handle a large number of voters with parking and ADA accessibility challenges. That's why they wanted to move to the fairgrounds. At about 6 this evening, election officials did open a spot at the Weber Center so people who did come there could vote and would not be redirected to the fairgrounds, which is hard to get to on public transit.
It has been a midterm election for the record books here in Utah.
The Senate race between incumbent Republican Senator Mike Lee and unaffiliated candidate Evan McMullin may be one of the most expensive races in state history. Let's go in depth for you now. Here with us in studio is Jason Perry from the Hinckley Institute of Politics at the University of Utah.
Jason, so great to have you with us throughout our extended coverage tonight. I want to go back before these actual numbers are starting to trickle in tonight. With McMullin and Lee, what do you think the campaign has been like? How would you rate it?
Well, these have been two very interesting campaigns and what is a truly unique campaign. I'll tell you, it has not been a positive experience mostly. And it's because we have a very unique scenario where it's really sort of a grand experiment right here, where you have not a traditional Republican versus a Democrat, but you have a Republican versus an independent. And that has been an interesting flavor that has not just made it unique in the state of Utah, but it has brought a lot of national attention. This is one of those races here that Utah is not used to having, where we may have an impact on the national stage.
Now, Jason, one of the big hurdles that Evan McMullin has had to get over is the idea of running as an independent and being able to have any kind of influence in Washington, which is without question a two-party system.
Yeah, this is a very delicate balance for Evan McMullin. If he wants to win tonight, and we'll watch these numbers as they come in, he has to get all of the Democrats. He has to get most of the independents and a huge majority of those moderate Republicans. He has had to run a campaign where he's trying not to alienate any of those particular groups. He needs every single one of them. All at the same time, his opponent, Mike Lee, has been trying time and time again to peg him just to the Democratic Party. And when we look at the voting tonight to see what comes in, that's what I'm looking for.
Guys, throughout this campaign season, we've heard a lot about the dignity factor or the dignity rating of these candidates. I feel like it's been in the spotlight, perhaps more than other election seasons that we've seen in recent years, Jason. What do you think about the candidates and their behavior, how they presented themselves in the spotlight and off?
Well, this has been sort of the opposite of dignified, this race entirely. When you talk to people around the state of Utah, they don't like negative campaigning, but I'll tell you the reality, it does have an impact.
All right, Jason Perry with the Hinckley Institute of Politics. We will come back to you throughout our coverage here on Fox 13 News at 9.
Thanks so much, Jason. Right now, more results are coming in. We go now to Ben Winslow with the very latest numbers.
Yeah, that's right. We are starting to get counties starting to trickle in. About 9 counties so far have been reporting. And with these big federal races, let's just go ahead and get to the numbers right away. You can see Evan McMullin starting to eat into that commanding lead that Senator Mike Lee had, at least early on. 60% for Mike Lee right now, 36% for Evan McMullin, and 2% for the Libertarian candidate James Hansen there. In House District 1, the results really haven't changed, but that's because the segment that is House District 1, the more counties have not yet reported in those areas, but Blake Moore a commanding lead there. In House District 2, again, this goes from Davis County all the way down to St. George, 67% a commanding lead for Congressman Chris Stewart, the incumbent Republican there, against his Democratic Independent or United Utah Party and Constitution Party challengers. In House District 3, now we're starting to get results coming in from these counties, which is a portion of northern and southeastern Utah. This is John Curtis's, obviously, his race, an overwhelming lead based upon the results so far, looking to win re-election there. House District 4, it is again based upon the counties reporting so far. Incumbent Republican Congressman Burgess Owens with an overwhelming lead against his Democratic and United Utah Party challengers. Constitutional Amendment A, this is one, again, there was nobody who said in the official voter guide that they were against this, which is legislative session special spending, increasing the spending powers in a legislative special session, But clearly there is a groundswell of people who, at least based upon the results so far, don't seem to like it. We're going to be continuing to track these numbers. I'll be back with a look at some of the legislative races, some of the hotly contested ones there. That'll be in a few minutes. Back to you, Bob and Kelly.
Well, tracking the weather tonight here across the state, our heaviest precipitation is expected overnight. We could have some very tough travel for tomorrow morning, and we're going to be cooling down majorly by Thursday night and into Friday. So we've got some very cool air on the way. But for today, some dense, heavy precipitation out of the southwest as our area of low pressure continues to move towards the east. So by tomorrow at 7 a.m., we're going to keep things going here across Utah. We'll see this changing over to snow for even much of our I-15 corridor for the morning drive, but it'll be mountain passes that'll be the worst tomorrow. And then we'll see that transition to snow at some point tomorrow morning here along the Wasatch Front. It's looking most likely between about 6 and 10 a.m. But obviously, depending on the intensity of this precipitation, we could see that changing over earlier, and for the benches even sooner than that. So for future casts, we take you through Thursday. We could see some lingering precip out of the northwest, some fluffier snow to wrap things up. Storm continues to move off to our east, and with this flow out of the north by Friday, Veterans Day, we have some very cold temps on the way. So for tonight here across northern Utah, let's go ahead and zoom into the Wasatch Front right now, because we've had some very heavy precipitation over Antelope Island along I-15 from about I-80 up towards Brigham City right now. And we are going to continue with some areas of showers and thunderstorms. Some moderate to heavy rainfall right now, mostly North Salt Lake, further north up through Layton and Roy and Ogden. For the mountains right now, we do have winter driving conditions for the Cottonwood Canyons. And across southern Utah, some spotty precip for all of our I-15 corridor into southwest Utah, even a little bit of lightning. For tonight, winter storm warning still in effect through Thursday. For the mountains here across the state, winter weather advisories have been issued for the Wasatch back. And for the rest of your election night here in Salt Lake, our temperatures remain in the mid-40s for much of the night. But by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, 30s and low 40s here across the state. It is a statewide storm. We see winter driving conditions, and that'll be tough at times, particularly for the mountains into tonight and tomorrow morning and throughout the day tomorrow for the mountains here across Utah. And then at times here in the valleys, we could see that snow mixing in. So 4 p.m. tomorrow, tomorrow, around 35 to 45 for much of the state. It'll be another breezy day. We're not done with the wind quite yet. Tomorrow, the wind will be about 15 to 30 miles per hour. And for St. George, your chance of precipitation for tomorrow is scattered. After that, we are drying out. So the St. George 7-day forecast, close to 50 for Wednesday. Thursday, 54 degrees. Morning frost Thursday and Veterans Day on Friday. This weekend, St. George, your overnight temps will be right around freezing. For Salt Lake, 43 tomorrow, 40 on Thursday, only 37 on Veterans Day. Overnight temps dropping close to 20 degrees here in Salt Lake starting Thursday night. Let's talk about storm totals coming up in your Super 7-day forecast.
Allison, thanks so much. Coming up, we'll get you up to speed on where some of the big national races stand right now from our national correspondent, Joe St. George in Washington.
As the balance of power is decided in this 2022 midterm election, what's the history of voting in the state of Utah? We'll break it down for you.
Welcome back to election night coverage on Fox 13 News. We are tracking the balance of power in Congress and where it stands right now.
Lots of big races to track at this moment. National correspondent Joe St. George is in Washington tonight.
There have been some big-name governors nationally cruising to re-election tonight. In Ohio, incumbent Republican Governor Mike DeWine has won re-election. In Florida, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis has won. In Colorado, incumbent Democratic Governor Jared Polis has won re-election. Remember, these governors faced some pretty crucial decisions during the COVID pandemic. They faced a lot of criticism over lockdowns or decisions at times. Thus far tonight, blowback has been minimal, at least when it comes to that issue. However, there still remains close races in states like Wisconsin, Nevada, Michigan, and New York. Incumbent Democratic governors are waiting anxiously for results there. However, Republicans have suffered their first major disappointment of the night in Colorado. That's because incumbent Democratic Senator Michael Bennet has won re-election in that state. Many conservatives nationally had been hoping that a red wave would sweep across the Rocky Mountains, impact a pretty blue state like Colorado. That is not the case this evening. It suggests that if a red wave does occur when this election's all said and done, it may not be as big as some Republicans had hoped. Remember, though, we're simply not going to know the full picture when it comes to the U.S. Senate this evening. Races in states like Pennsylvania are simply too close. We may have a better understanding of where things stand in the House of Representatives, however. If Republicans do take back that chamber, as some have forecasted, it would mean new political debates in this country over everything from IRS funding to the border. It would also be a lot harder for President Biden to get his agenda accomplished. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
I'm Brian Schnee, live in downtown Salt Lake City tonight at the Utah GOP Watch Party. Some big races. We're going to be joined live by Congressman Chris Stewart on the other side of the break.
Are rolling in. Evan McMullin hopes to make Utah history tonight. I'm here with his team who hope today could be the day.
We continue to track all of the big races on this midterm election night here in Utah.
We do have multiple crews out right now giving you live team coverage. Let's go back right now to Fox 13 News anchor Brian Schnee. He is live at the Republican election night party in downtown Salt Lake City. Brian.
Bob and Kelly, it's a busy night here. I'm glad we could grab someone to talk to us. Kind enough to join us now, Congressman Chris Stewart. We looked at those early results. You're up by a good margin, but it's early. How are you feeling tonight?
Well, you know, we've always been optimistic, but we don't take it for granted. And I know everyone says that, but you really don't take it for granted. We've worked very hard. We want to represent the people within the district. We try to talk to them. We try to listen to them. And hopefully that'll be reflected here tonight.
What's important for Utahns right now in Washington moving forward?
Thing we talk about all the time, it's inflation, energy prices. I mean, they're hurting working Americans. They're hurting young families. It's the one thing I think the Republicans are going to have to do everything they can to make an impact on that as soon as we swear in, assuming that we get the House and hopefully the Senate.
Feeling good about the rest of the GOP tonight?
Well, we haven't been able to watch a lot of the returns, but I mean, I am feeling good from what little I've seen. I think we're going to win the House. I would literally bet my house we win the House. and I'm optimistic, very optimistic about the Senate as well.
Congressman, thank you for your time. Bob and Kelly will send things back to you.
All right, Brian, thank you so much.
Turning now once again to Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenser. She is live at the Mid-Valley Performing Arts Center in Taylorsville tonight. It's site of McMullen's campaign's gathering. Emily, what's happening there?
Kelly, Bob, those preliminary results are coming in. We still have yet to hear from Evan McMullen, but his supporters, his voters, they're still feeling super hopeful because they're tired of just being labeled and put into a specific box. That's what his team is.
We're really excited. We're proud of the coalition that we've built of Republicans, Democrats, and independents. It's a very unique race. It's competitive, and we're really eager to see the results tonight, to celebrate regardless of the outcome.
This has been a busy campaign for the former CIA officer, and just these last couple of days, he's visited over half a dozen counties.
We were having a little bit of audio problems with Emily's microphone, but you can tell it's an excited atmosphere down there at the McMullen campaign headquarters, or at least the gathering site tonight.
As it is at Lee's campaign, of course, we will be checking back in with Brian, figuring out his technical difficulties, and Emily as well. You know, both candidates, of course, hoping for a big night, waiting the returns. And we want to get right to the numbers now. Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow has been watching those numbers. Ben, I see your eyes glued to that laptop.
Yeah, I keep obsessively hitting refresh. We have 12 counties in now, including a big one. Washington County just came in. So let's just go ahead and start pulling up this. You can see the results right there for the hotly contested U.S. Senate race. Incumbent Republican Senator Mike Lee still with a large lead over independent challenger Evan McMullen, 60% to 36%. In House District 1, we now have at least another county coming in there. The results shifting, but only slightly. Blake Moore still with a commanding lead over his Democratic challenger. In House District 2, incumbent Republican Congressman Chris Stewart pulling ahead even further, 70% of the vote going for him against his Democratic United Utah Party and Constitution Party challengers there. In House District 3, again, Republicans taking the commanding lead on this one with Congressman John Curtis in the lead over his challengers in the race there. With House District 4, this is where things are shaping up. Democratic challenger Darlene McDonald went up slightly, but still a commanding lead by incumbent Republican Congressman Burgess Owens. And with Constitutional Amendment A, this is actually turning out to be the surprise of the night. This is, again, whether or not the legislature should be able to spend more in a special session. 62% of the vote coming in right now against it. Many people who have opposed this have said they believe that the legislature has too much power and that they should be working with the governor if they want to spend more money. That's one we're going to keep an eye on. We're also waiting for some big counties to come in. Salt Lake, we're waiting for Utah County, for Weber County. These results definitely we're watching, we're hitting refresh, and we will be bringing you the latest as we get them. Back to you.
All right, Ben, thanks so much. Meanwhile, in Washington County, some voters say it took them between 15 and 20 minutes to vote, Cal.
Issues that stood out were gun rights, the environment, taxation, and the economy. According to Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson's election update, Washington County's turnout was 46.5%, which was reported at 7:30 tonight. When asked if people have had similar issues, one voter said it really differs.
I mean, most people in my circle, I think, are more conservative, so I don't really think they have much of an issue of finding candidates that they feel represent them. But I feel like it's mostly just people in the middle and also on the left wing, I think, who feel like they have more of a difficulty on finding people in southern Utah who actually see the issues the way they do.
Utah voter Austin Lobb there says that he feels like everybody should have their voice heard, regardless of what side or what issue they are on.
Well, the Democrats in Utah are outnumbered by the Republicans, but let's check back in with Jenna Bree, who is at the Democrats' party place at the Sheraton Hotel tonight.
Jenna, how are things going?
That's right, Bob and Kelly. The crowd is definitely growing bigger here. I'm joined now by Fatima Deary. Fatima is the Democratic candidate for House District 30. Fatima, just tell us, how does it feel to be here tonight, surrounded by all your friends and family, all these people supporting you in your campaign?
It feels amazing. It's incredible to have all this support system, have everybody here. Tonight is a big night, so it's finally here. All the hard work, everything that we have done, it pays off, and I'm really, really incredibly happy for what's going on.
Absolutely. Just heard a big cheer from the crowd. There must be some results coming in. And yeah, I just wanted to ask you, why was it so important for you to run for office this year?
I think as a woman of color, a Muslim, a refugee, it's really important that we represent the state of Utah. People know that we want to give back. We want to continue the momentum, bring back diversity, bring back, treat each other with respect. And I think it's a good momentum to really encourage all other women in politics, empower every lady that wants to make a difference in their community. There's a way to do it. And that's a platform that I've been running on, and I appreciate every resident of West Valley City and all those that supported me throughout this experience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And again, we'll continue to be checking up on those races as we're getting the votes in. We're still waiting on Salt Lake County, but we might have some votes coming in here soon. Throw it back to you guys reporting live in Salt Lake City. Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
All right, Jenna, thanks so much. Let's go back to our political analyst tonight, Jason Perry from the Hinckley Institute of Politics. Let's talk about the importance of debates, Jason. In the Evan McMullin and Mike Lee race, there was only one debate that I recall, correct? And then with the Burgess Owens race, it was hard to get, he didn't even show up at one debate. How important are debates in a political campaign?
There was a time when this was the way that you would get to know the candidates. Sometimes you would actually get to hear about the issues. It's become a lot less the case now. And you mentioned two big ones right there. The debate between Senator Lee and Evan McMullin was an interesting one. It was one that I don't think won over any hearts or minds anywhere. And when it came to the debate with Burgess Owens in the 4th Congressional District, it was interesting to watch. I was the one that was moderating the first debate when Burgess Owens did not come to do the debate, and then he planned one later on. And as you can see from the results that are coming in, almost no impact on his election at all.
Jason, I think a lot of people would find it disappointing that these debates, as you said, are becoming less significant. Why aren't constituents holding their candidates accountable and saying, if you're going to run and you're going to represent me, you need to take that podium?
I think we need to hold them more responsible and ask them to meet with us directly. What's happening instead is these candidates are choosing different forms of communication to their voters. They're using social media, they're doing videos, they're trying to control the message, and you can't do that so well through a debate, but that is really a way to really understand better what these candidates are all about. And what's interesting there is oftentimes these debates are not even getting to those key issues, and that's where we as voters sort of don't get what we should be getting from these candidates, a real understanding of where they are on the issues.
It gets more and more difficult. All right, Jason Perry, thanks so much from the Hinckley Institute of Politics.
Jason, we look forward to chatting with you a little bit more throughout the night. We still have a long way to go, guys. Thanks for being here, Jason.
Thank you.
Election results continue to trickle in, and we are on top of it. We have extended coverage tonight here on Fox 13 News.
Keep it right here.
Another midterm election in the bag for the state of Utah, but what is Utah's voting history? It's long and historic, and we'll tell you it, give you a little bit of a break from the polls and the punditry.
Thank you so much for being with us on election night as we continue to watch the numbers, the returns as they come in. You can watch and follow at home. Right down below on your screen, that ticker has all the updated results. Today marks the 63rd election counting both midterms and presidential elections since we became a state in Utah here in 1896.
So as we continue to see results from this historic night, Fox 13 News reporter Spencer Joseph took an in-depth look back at the history of how Utah has voted and some historic firsts the state claims as its own.
Let's take a quick break from all the polls and the punditry of the 2022 midterm elections in the state of Utah to take a look back at all of those that have voted before us. This is a brief history of Utah voting in just 2 minutes. So let's start at the beginning, or I guess technically a little bit before the beginning, because Utah's first elections were actually held before we became a state, including a very special first. Utah women were the first to be able to cast ballots in the entire country, including the very first woman ever to vote in the United States, Sarah Young. She voted in Salt Lake City's municipal election on February 14, 1870, way before Utah became a state. The first election we ever voted in as a state was, of course, in 1896, a presidential election between William McKinley and William Jennings Bryan. We voted for Bryan by the largest margin ever in the state, over 82%, but McKinley won that election. But the first don't stop there. On that first Utah election day as a state, the woman behind me made history. In 1896, Martha Hughes Cannon became the first woman ever to be elected to a state senate across the country, even running against her husband for a seat in the Utah Senate. While we're on the subject of that very first election, the balance of power was wildly different than it is today. In November of that year, there were only 3 Republicans that served at the state level. The rest were either members of the Populist Party or the overwhelming supermajority of the Democratic Party. Utah was entitled to only 1 member of the U.S. House of Representatives, with Democrat William H. King becoming our first ever representative. Utah's Senate race between Mike Lee and Evan McMullin has been the race to watch this year. So let's talk about the history of Senate races in the state of Utah. Utah has never elected an unaffiliated candidate to the Senate. And the last time someone who served in the Senate who wasn't Republican was Senator Frank Moss, who was defeated after serving 18 years in 1977 by Senator Orrin Hatch. In total, Utah has elected 12 Republicans and 5 Democrats to the Senate. There you have it, a brief history of Utah voting in just 2 minutes. Now let's get you back to all of the data pouring in from around the state and around the country as this 2022 midterm election is decided. On the Hill, Spencer Joseph, Fox 13 News, Utah.
We'll get to all that in just a second, but there are other big story here across Utah. A storm moving in tonight. We're going to see some heavy precipitation overnight. This is 1:30 a.m. I'll let you know storm totals coming up in your Super 7-day forecast.
We're so glad you could join us tonight for Fox 13 News Election 2022 coverage. Bob Evans with Kelly Chapman here with you, and we're just continuing to watch the results come in now from Salt Lake County.
Election night, always exciting. Let's get to Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow with the very latest numbers. Ben.
Yeah, Salt Lake County is reporting, but it's so far not populating with the rest of the state numbers. So I want to caution people what you're just going to see right here. This is more counties that have come in. This is the U.S. Senate race right now. 53% for Mike Lee, 43% for unaffiliated challenger Evan McMullin. Now, the interesting part about that race, I just want to tell you, is that Evan McMullin has 60% of the vote based upon early reporting in Salt Lake County alone. But we got to populate that in. So we'll update that in the next break. This is a race that we've also been watching. Weber County came in. This is one of the races to watch when it comes to the legislature. Democratic incumbent Rosemary Lesser still maintaining a lead in redistricting. She absorbed a lot more Republican areas, and so it's been interesting to watch to see if she can hang on to her seat. So that's the results you're seeing on your screen right there. Now, this is another result that has come in. The Orem School District Proposition 2. This is whether or not Orem should split off from the Alpine School District, the state's largest school district. 73% of votes coming in so far are against it, but you can see the voting numbers there. It's still a low number. We expect Utah County to update that, and it may change. This is where things are with the Alpine School District bond. This is the largest school bond in state history, $595 million. And right now, people are against that. And again, we expect those numbers to maybe shift up a little bit more. Constitutional Amendment A. This is whether the legislature should be able to spend more in a special session. Right now, based upon statewide results, voters do not approve of granting that power to the legislature. We have been hearing from some who have opposed it, saying they want the legislature to work with the governor. This has been some interesting things that have emerged here on election night, and there's a lot more races we're tracking, and we're going to check in a little bit with even more results as we come in. You can also check the ticker on your screen, on your TV screen at the bottom there. That'll keep you up to date as well throughout the entire newscast. Back to you, Bob and Kelly.
Thanks so much, Ben. Now, here's what we're tracking for you across the state right now. Some areas of heavy rainfall, mainly Salt Lake and Tooele counties further north along I-15 through Layton up towards Brigham City. So through Ogden, some areas of moderate to heavy rainfall. We are going to see some areas of low visibility tonight also. As we zoom in right now to the Salt Lake area from the East Bench all the way down through the Southern Interchange, South Jordan out towards Magna and Kearns, West Valley. We have some heavy rainfall coming down out towards the airport and across central Utah. A little bit drier for eastern and central Utah, but once you get closer to about Torrey further west, that's where we have some areas of widely scattered showers and thunderstorms. By 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, we are going to have areas of snow for much of the state. Now let's go ahead and get you to temperatures for tomorrow morning, because when you wake up, it'll be about 35 to 45 for much of the state. You'll notice we're going to see that chance for snow throughout the day tomorrow, mainly for the mountains, but we will see that scattered into the afternoon. So as we break down our snow chances here in Salt Lake City, I want to give you an idea of when we could see this transferring over from rain to snow. Now, obviously, there's a lot of factors at play here, but the intensity of the precipitation could also impact when we see that transition, or if you're seeing that back and forth rain and snow. But the models are pretty much in agreement that we'll see that transition between 6 and 10 a.m. And then as we take you throughout the day tomorrow, we could see a little bit more snow. But our winter weather forecast for the mountains, we've got a wide range with this storm. So for the Cottonwood Canyons, we could see about 20 to 30 inches of snow. Some other northern mountains closer to about 10 to 20 inches of snow. For the northern valleys, a trace to 5 inches. Southern mountains, 12 to 24 inches. For the southern valleys, a trace to 6 inches. Some locally higher amounts are possible, especially if we pick up any lake effect precipitation out of this. St. George, you're close to 50 degrees tomorrow, 54 on Thursday, 53 on Veterans Day, with an overnight temp Thursday night of 30 degrees. So very cold for any activities, events on Veterans Day morning. Here along the Wasatch Front, 43 tomorrow, widespread rain and snow. Thursday, 40 degrees. Friday, 37 only, so we are cooling down majorly. We're close to 40 this weekend. And as we break down our precipitation chances here in Salt Lake over the next couple of days, we are drying out once we get into Thursday with our overnight temps very cool, near 20 degrees. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our extended coverage of election 2022 right here on Fox 13 News. We are following all of the election results here in Utah. It's a very exciting night, a big race between incumbent Republican Utah Senator Mike Lee and his unaffiliated challenger Evan McMullin. And that race has really tightened up.
It really has, separated now by about 10 points. We, of course, are still waiting for many counties. A lot of large counties still not reporting their full returns. We do have reporters both at the Lee and McMullin watch parties, both of them hoping for a big night. And Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow will have the very latest updated numbers coming up right after this.
Our extended coverage continues. Right now on Fox 13 News, continuing election coverage.
All eyes on downtown Salt Lake City tonight, where the Utah GOP convenes on this election night. We'll bring it to you.
The prediction polls leading up to Election Day said it would be a tight race, but what do the numbers say? I'm here in Taylorsville with Evan McMullin's team with the latest on the Senate race.
It's election night in Utah and across the nation. We've got the latest results.
Utah Democrats have their eyes on a few key races. We're live at the Utah Democratic Party's election night party.
We're keeping track of the races critical to Utah. Special extended coverage starts now. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for staying with us as we continue to bring you live coverage of the 2022 elections. I'm Kelly Chapman alongside Bob Evans tonight.
We're tracking results in real time right now, including the big race here in Utah for a seat in the U.S. Senate. The contestants, or the candidates, I should say, Republican incumbent Senator Mike Lee and challenger Evan McMullin.
This race garnering a lot of attention nationally as well tonight. Here are the results. 54% for Mike Lee to 43% right now for Evan McMullin.
We expect these numbers to change here momentarily as soon as we enter the Salt Lake County numbers, which we are told will shift these numbers significantly. So you don't want to go anywhere before we learn what these real numbers are.
Waiting really on the edge of our seat, waiting to see if that new dump will push McMullin over the edge to take the lead from Mike Lee. We'll follow up with that in just a minute. Continuing our team coverage now, we do have political reporter Ben Winslow, who is tracking numerous races across the state. Jenna Bree is at the Utah Democratic Party's gathering, and Emily Tenser is at Evan McMullin's watch party right now.
But let's check in again with Fox 13 News anchor Brian Schnee live at the Republican election night party in downtown Salt Lake. Brian.
Well, Bob and Kelly, it was definitely a party in there, but we had to step outside for a moment to chat with Congressman Burgess Owens. Congressman, how are you doing tonight? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good. I'm excited to see what's happening tonight, that our country's really waking up. I think the power of what's happened the last couple of years is that we, the people, begin to talk together to each other across aisles and coming to the same conclusion. We need to give the Republican Party a chance to go out there and restore what we call back to normal. So I'm excited about being part of that process and proud of Utah, proud of the rest of the country in terms of how we're turning out at this point for sure.
In talking with Utahns, what are they telling you? What are the issues that they're facing right now, and what can we do in Washington?
You know, and what's interesting, Utah is having the same conversation that everybody else is having at this point. And we are actually addressing it through the Commitment to America. And it's 4 basic tenets that we all get, we understand. It's having an economy that's strong, a nation that's safe, a government that's accountable, and a future built on freedom. You add all that up, everything that I just said draws people to us. And when we get together in 2023 as a majority, we're going to start putting together legislation that will address that and bring back the American dream, bring back the promotion of the middle class, which has been under attack for the last year and a half. So I'm excited about being a part of that process. Proud of Americans for waking up and having these conversations and coming to conclusions we're coming to right now.
Congressman Burgess Owens, thank you for a few minutes tonight. We appreciate it. Nice to see you.
Take care.
Bob and Kelly, lots going on here. Of course, that race has tightened up between Mike Lee and Evan McMullin. We're here. We're sticking around. We'll send things back to you.
All right, Brian, thanks so much. Turning now again to Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenser. She is at the Mid-Valley Performing Arts Center in Taylorsville, site of the McMullin party tonight, Kel.
Absolutely, Emily, a political reporter tonight. Emily, seems a lot quieter now than it was earlier there at the McMullin camp.
Victory for the Republicans. If it were that narrow.
Kelly, Bob, yeah, so the music has been turned off as those preliminary results have been rolling in. We have yet to hear from McMullin, but we're hoping to hear from him soon. You know, initial results got everybody feeling a little nervous, but since more and more numbers have come out, that gap has started to narrow, especially some of those latest numbers from Salt Lake County specifically. So this is kind of the area of what it's like here in the Mid-Valley Performance Center. His supporters are confident in his platform that he could be the guy to represent Utah, not just a specific party, but anyone here in the state. His team tells me that's actually been one of the biggest challenges this campaign, being independent, trying to break people off of that two-party loyalty, and it's worked so far. He's received backing from the Utah Democratic Party and also other GOP leaders. I spoke to his team earlier today who say it makes him different from his opponent, Mike Lee.
I think that Evan differs in many ways from Senator Lee. He's recently spoken out about a pharmaceutical bill that Senator Lee was for that really prevented Americans, Utahns and Americans, from being able to negotiate on prescription drug prices.
Look at the broader map and talking to White House officials.
It's been a long day of canvassing, and now that numbers are finally coming in, his team is hopeful they can start seeing how everything is going to turn out. Like I said, the DJ turned off the music, and we have yet to hear from McMullin, so we're here at the podium, so hopefully he'll be taking the mic soon. So for now, I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio, reporting live in Taylorsville. Emily Tenser, Fox 13 News, Utah.
All right, Emily, thanks so much. You can feel the tension in the air, the excitement in the air at each one of the locations where they are following these election results tonight.
Especially as these news numbers come in, closing the gap between the two. Let's go now to Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow with the very latest numbers. Ben, I know we've been waiting on Salt Lake County, and that would have a significant impact in this race.
That's right. Salt Lake County, of course, a very big county, and it has a lot of numbers. They have at least released their initial results for the evening, and this is the results that you're seeing on your screen. Mike Lee still with about a 10-point lead over Evan McMullin, with Salt Lake County's at least initial numbers coming in. I should also point out that Weber County has finished counting for the night. That's another big county to watch. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and get some of these races that in Salt Lake County we have been waiting for that are hotly contested races. Salt Lake County at-large B seat B has Suzanne Harrison, the Democratic former state lawmaker, with a lead over Richard Snellgrove, the incumbent Republican Salt Lake County council member. Now, with Salt Lake County clerk, this has been another race that the Salt Lake County Democratic Party has poured a lot of resources into. Lanny Chapman right now with a big lead over Gaud Maragani, at least right now. The Salt Lake County District Attorney's race showing incumbent Democratic DA Sim Gill with a sizable lead over his Republican challenger Danielle Ahn. So that race has been another one we've been watching. Now, this is one we've been wanting to see the results of. This is the $85 million Parks and Recreation Open Space Trails bond for Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City voters overwhelmingly right now in favor of this bond. This gets a new, and that is now constitutional amendment A now in with some more counties reporting Salt Lake County. That has narrowed now. This is the legislative special spending power. Excuse me, I'm tripping over my tongue here. This would allow the legislature to spend more money in a special session. Voters not really liking this, at least so far, what we've been seeing all night, although that has narrowed. We're going to be looking at some more numbers, including some of these closely watched legislative district races, and I'll be back in a little bit. Back to you.
Ben, thank you so much. Covering so much for us tonight. We're going to go ahead and check back in now with Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree. She is with the Democrats at the Salt Lake City Sheraton Hotel right now with a familiar face, Bob.
Yeah, we just saw Sim Gill leading his opponent at this point. And Jenna, go ahead.
As those votes are coming in, I'm joined now with our Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill. Sim, how do you feel being here tonight, this crowd tonight? What does it mean to you?
Well, I think the crowd is getting excited. I think that they're guardedly optimistic. The numbers are actually proving them right, and I think this idea of the red wave may not be so red or that overwhelming. So I think they're sensing that. The initial drops numbers are looking great. The sheriff is up. I'm up. Harrison is up, and Lanny Chapman is up. These are great countywide races that everybody has worked really hard for, and so I think we're all guardedly optimistic. We hope these numbers hold, and the excitement is building here.
Sure. How did you feel sort of going into this night? Was it confidence or was there, some nervousness going into it?
I think people are recognizing that extremism is not what is going to unite us. It is common sense solutions. It's people working hard, coming together as a community and serving our community. And I think those are the values that are resonating. And it is about our community. And that was our message. Our message was about community building, common sense solution. And I think the voters are reacting to that.
Thank you so much, and we'll continue to keep our eyes on those races as we're still getting those votes in tonight. Reporting live in Salt Lake City, Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Jenna, thanks so much. Sim Gill as well, looking very happy tonight so far.
We've been listening to the rain and the hail on the roof here at Fox 13, and this entire day, Allison, you hope that you have good weather for an election turnout, but it rained pretty good today.
Yes, luckily we knew the storm was coming, so hopefully people were prepared. Throughout the night tonight, we're going to continue with chances for rain, temperatures in the 40s through much of the night here in Salt Lake City. And we're going to see a transition eventually to snowfall here, or at least mixing that into the valleys come later tomorrow morning. So satellite and radar, our heaviest rainfall right now is near I-80 further west, Stansbury Park, all the way towards the Wasatch Mountains, along I-15 Salt Lake up through the Ogden area, all the way up towards Brigham City. We are seeing some moderate precipitation to areas of heavy rainfall. And then into central Utah, it's a little spottier. Into southwest Utah, a few pockets of thunderstorms. We've seen a little bit of lightning along I-15 in southwest Utah today. Snow coming down near Bryan Head. Lots of clouds. We're going to keep things very breezy tonight into the overnight hours and then into tomorrow morning. About 40 miles per hour for eastern Utah and breezy across the rest of the state, 20 to 30 miles per hour. Coming up, we'll get to snow totals and what you can expect overnight.
Allison, thanks. Still to come, we will get you up to speed on where some of the big national races stand right now from our national correspondent, Joe St. George in Washington, D.C. tonight.
And we'll go in depth with this man right here, Jason Perry, director of the Hinckley Institute of Politics at the University of Utah. We'll talk about the historic nature of this midterm election. Fox 13 News extended team coverage of election 2022 continues right after this. We have been tracking the balance of power in Congress. It is extremely important leading up to this midterm election. There has been all kinds of campaigning going on because of the control of power of Congress and the importance that that is to the national agenda.
There are a lot of big races to track at the moment. National correspondent Joe St. George is in Washington, D.C. tonight.
One big item we are watching is, does the winning Senate candidate in Georgia clear 50% plus one of the vote in this election? If they don't, there's going to have to be another election, a runoff election on December 6th to determine the winner of that race, and it could very well determine who controls the United States Senate going forward. We're still a ways away from all eyes being on Georgia, though. That's because states like Pennsylvania are taking a while to tabulate the results. Pennsylvania will have a big say in who controls the United States Senate for the next 2 years. County officials in some parts of the state have already said they're not going to finish tabulating the vote until midday tomorrow, so buckle up. As for President Biden, no media appearances tonight, but behind the scenes in the White House, he did make celebratory phone calls to Governor Jared Polis of Colorado. He also called Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger of Virginia. That was a crucial hold for Democrats nationally. A lot of Republicans wanted to win that seat in the Commonwealth of Virginia. They did not. That suggests that a massive red wave may not be sweeping the country as some conservatives had hoped, although a mini wave is certainly still possible. Republican Congressman Kevin McCarthy of California is still hoping to become the next Speaker in the House of Representatives. Republicans will hold their internal leadership elections here in Washington next week. One question that has not been answered this evening, the future of current House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. A lot of people have speculated that she may retire from Congress after this midterm, although she has said nothing definitive on that issue. She's been a fixture in Democratic politics nationally for over 2 decades. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
One of the big races, of course, we've been following is the Evan McMullin-Mike Lee race, and we want to bring in Jason Perry, our political analyst, again tonight. And Jason, we were talking earlier about the possibility of Evan McMullin unseating Mike Lee and then changing the balance of power somehow in the Senate with 49 Democrats and 50 Republicans. Just one Republican is all that would be needed to get elected to the Senate to turn that whole thing around and put Evan McMullin in a very powerful seat.
Mm-hmm. This is the interesting thing for Evan McMullin, and it can go one of two ways, really. And it's just as you described. You know, with 50 Republicans there, they need one. And there is a path forward if Evan McMullin wins this race where he becomes sort of that magic vote that everyone wants to get, the one that bridges both parties that you need. That's the scenario where it's just very evenly divided. It plays very well to his strategy in this case. Of course, it goes the other direction as well. If the Republicans pick up 1 or 2 seats in the Senate and have the clear majority, the magic of that vote sort of goes away a little bit. But that's the calculation that Evan McMullin is trying to put forward, and it's very impactful, particularly since he has said that he is not going to caucus with either party. That cuts both ways.
Jason, these numbers keep fluctuating, but right now we've got Mike Lee at about 54%, Evan McMullin about 42%. What is it going to take for McMullin to see this huge jump and pull ahead of Lee?
Somehow Salt Lake County and moderate Republicans. That is the only way that he gets this race, is if he captures all of those, and there's still quite a few outstanding.
So there's a chance. McMullin needs to keep the hope alive tonight.
He needs to try. 10 points is a lot. This is Mike Lee's race to win, but that's where we're going to see the victory if there is one to be had.
In the event that Evan McMullin pulls this off, then what happens to Mike Lee?
Well, first, he's very, very disappointed is what happens. And he will talk about where he went wrong in this race. But it's a lesson for him either way. If he pulls this off, or even if it's close, it's a lesson for Mike Lee. He better take note.
All right. Jason Perry with the Hinckley Institute of Politics. Thanks so much for your insights. We'll talk to you in just a little bit. Thank you.
Let's go over to Utah Weather Authority to talk to her about this very rainy election day statewide.
That's right. So our heaviest precipitation will be overnight. We're already seeing some very heavy to moderate rainfall for much of the Wasatch Front. We'll have some tough travel tomorrow, and we're going to be cooling down majorly. Statewide, satellite and radar will get really busy into the overnight hours, but right now the core of our heaviest precipitation is from about the airport up through the Hill Air Force area here along the Wasatch Front. We do have some pockets of very heavy precipitation out over Antelope Island, along I-15 through North Salt Lake, up through Layton, Kaysville, Roy. As we look up towards the mouth of Weber Canyon, across southern Utah, it's a little spottier. Drier into eastern Utah. We'll continue with breezy conditions throughout the night. We have winter storm warnings for the mountains through Thursday, plus winter weather advisories for the Wasatch back. Now across the state tomorrow morning, we see statewide rain and snow. We eventually see the rain transitioning to snow, or at least fluctuating back and forth between rain and snow for us here along the Wasatch Front throughout the day tomorrow. So temperatures are going to be about 35 to 45 for much of Utah for Wednesday at about 4 p.m. Tomorrow morning, we'll see breezy conditions in eastern Utah. A little less of a breeze into the second half of the day, but we'll still notice that wind tomorrow about 10 to 20 miles per hour. For St. George tomorrow, scattered storms, drier through the rest of your 7-day forecast. For the Ogden area, your chance of precipitation for tomorrow is likely, and also likely Wednesday night. By Thursday, you're isolated. For the Provo area, so Utah County, if you're joining us right now, I'm sure many of you are, widespread for tomorrow, your chance of precipitation. By Wednesday night, scattered, and then you're drier as we head into the rest of your 7-day forecast. So how much snow are we talking? We're going to have this through Thursday. We're going to see some lingering precipitation into Thursday, but we are expecting our worst conditions for travel overnight and into tomorrow. For the northern mountains, 10 to 32 inches of snow, with winter driving expected for our mountain passes tomorrow morning and throughout the day. Northern valleys, a trace to 5 inches of snowfall. For the southern mountains, 12 to 24, so 1 to 2 feet. And for the southern valleys, a trace to 6 inches. So please travel with caution tomorrow. And we're going to have some very cool temperatures returning for Thursday and Friday. So for St. George, 49 tomorrow, scattered rain. Thursday morning frost, 54. Friday morning frost, 53 on Veterans Day, close to 55 to 60 this weekend. And for the Wasatch Front, 43 for tomorrow, 40 on Thursday, 37 on Friday on Veterans Day. Do want to point out, if you have any events, Veterans Day morning, temperatures will be close to 20 degrees. Early on Friday, close to 40 this weekend.
Allison, thank you so much. First, Google sent voters to the wrong Weber County location, but then the county responded. We'll show you what they did.
We are tracking all the latest numbers, including some new ones that came in for legislative races. That's coming up next.
Here's some odd facts for you today. After voting websites directed people to the wrong polling location in Weber County and confused them, election officials opened a last-minute site for people trickling in just before the polls closed.
It was a good pivot. The Weber County Elections Office says they made a mistake and listed the Weber Center in Ogden as the polling site for voting in person, but that was only for early voting, and people were supposed to go to the fairgrounds today, but they did not know that.
On the website, they actually put the wrong address. So we went all the way from like 24th Street in Ogden all the way out here. So, but we made it. So, that's what counts.
Election officials say the Weber Center location was not equipped to handle a large number of voters with parking and ADA accessibility challenges. That's why they wanted to move to the fairgrounds. It was around 6 o'clock this evening. Weber County election officials did open a spot at the Weber Center so that people who went there could vote and would not be redirected to the fairgrounds, where it's hard to get to through public transit.
Okay, we understand. Are you telling me that Mike Lee is at the podium at this point? 2 minutes from that. Okay, in the meantime, it's time to check back in with Fox 13 political reporter Ben Winslow with the latest numbers.
You got
Ben.
2 minutes, Ben.
Go.
I will be quick. Let's just go ahead and get to the Senate race so that everybody can see what the results are thus far on their screens. Can we call up the Senate race? You can see Mike Lee still with a 10-point lead. This is with Salt Lake County coming in. We understand Utah County and Salt Lake County are going to release more results later tonight. Meanwhile, let's move on to some legislative races. Trevor Lee right now still in the lead against Stephen Handy. Steve Handy actually is the representative for the district right now. He did not gather signatures and lost at convention, so he's running a write-in campaign. In House District 30, this is a close race, or one to watch because this is a swing district. Incumbent Representative Judy Weeks-Rohner right now maintaining a narrow lead over Fatima Deary. We'll see where that goes. And Phil Lyman with a commanding lead over Davina Smith in this race, which represents a big chunk of southeastern Utah. And in Salt Lake County, this is going to be an interesting one to watch as this goes forward. Suzanne Harris, the former state lawmaker, challenging incumbent council member Richard Snellgrove, and right now she is in the lead. This is an interesting one too, based upon ballots so far. And again, this is still early. Orem School District split. The school district split from the Alpine School District. This is going down at least right now. But as you can see, those are low voter numbers. We got a long way to go on that one, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I think Lee is liking that 12-point advantage over McMullen so far tonight. We are expecting him to take the podium at any moment. Any expectations as to what he's going to say, Jason?
Well, he's going to declare victory of sorts, but he's not really going to say he's taking this race. He's going to talk about how well he is doing across the state. He's going to try to just give a real bit, kind of a pep talk right now, saying he's happy to have a 12-point lead. He hopes it stays. Neither one of them can declare victory at this point.
He is a constitutional conservative, but Evan McMullen is a conservative too. So in differentiating these two, I mean, how do the voters differentiate their conservatism?
Yeah, well, so this is what's hard for those moderate Republicans, and that's why so many of them went into this election without knowing what they're going to do. And this is really a question: do I want someone who I know very well in Mike Lee, or for those people who are not happy with him, do they take a chance on Evan McMullen?
Throughout the campaign, Mike Lee stood on the point that our country is in a very volatile situation right now, and voters can't take any risks. You've got to go with an established senator. Do you think that worked for him, Ben?
You know, really, it's ultimately up to the voters to decide if that worked. And what we're seeing right now is voters so far, based upon the results, are sticking with the incumbent. He does have incumbent advantage. That's a significant factor.
I think this message about the control of the Senate has played into that as well. You know, there may be people who don't like Senator Mike Lee, and he's done some things that have made some of those moderate Republicans not want to come with him. But that larger narrative, that the things that Republicans care about really might be on the line in Washington, D.C., is a message that has resonated with many. Some are willing to say, I'm willing to go with this particular vote because I care about that larger issue and the Republicans controlling the Senate.
Near historic amounts of money poured into this campaign.
Well, this is a record. So you look at the two candidates, and it's over $15 million that they have raised and spent, and it's almost just over that of outside money. This is the most expensive Senate race the state of Utah has ever seen by a large margin.
And what will it have bought for the Utah voters?
Well, it's probably bought a lot of people who are not going to want to participate in a lot of things. This has not been for positive commercials. This has not been promoting any kind of special connection to the issues that people care about. This has been a lot of money spent trying to portray the opponent in the most negative possible light.
And do those negative ads work?
Yeah, so they do. That's the reality. You know, we've done some polling on this particular issue, and Utahns say, we don't like it, but the reality is it impacts everyone else, but not me. That's what everyone says. I'm immune from it, but everyone else maybe not.
Is this a bellwether, though, for future elections, I wonder? If this is the level of spending, are we going to see this in future cycles?
Yeah, it depends. In my mind, it depends on if these races are close. If we have like our congressional districts, people are not going to spend a lot of money on those. But if this little experiment in this Senate race continues to go forward, I think we'll continue to see a lot of money flowing into these races.
We continue to wait for Mike Lee to take the podium at the Republican Party. We will come back and go there if he is talking right after this.
Incumbent Senator Mike Lee now taking the podium at his watch party. Let's go ahead and listen in. This is what we've been waiting for.
Failed us. It failed us to the point that red states are having none of it. And tonight, blue states don't want much of it either. Purple states are saying no to it, and I look forward to 2024 when even the blue states are going to be saying heck no. And that's strong language in Utah. Look, I kind of like her, and she's been very helpful to me in this. So. Look, Utah is quintessentially Western, and it's quintessentially a state that's about freedom. We know what that means. We love it, and we're willing to fight for it and sacrifice it, and we've chosen it again tonight. Thank you. We have the ability tonight, we're still awaiting the results in a number of states, but I think we're going to have some opportunities to go on the offensive. We understand some things in Utah, things about how we can go on the offensive and make a difference in the lives of individual Americans. We understand here in Utah that a smaller government means a stronger America. That's why we focus on that. You know what that means? That means, yes, big government does suck. Thank you. We were right all along, weren't we? Not a prop. I want you to know how deeply I appreciate you and your support. And we still have so much left to do. Look, it appears at least possible at this point that Republicans could regain the majority, not just in the House, because we've got that pretty well taken care of, but also in the United States Senate. You know what that means?
That means no more Biden.
That means we've got a job to do.
Yeah.
We've got a lot to do, and it's going to start by reining in out-of-control federal spending that is taking away the purchasing power of your dollar. That means we're going to start having effective, aggressive oversight hearings. That means it's time to reform the spending process in Washington. It's a spending process that for too long has locked out the American people from knowing what Congress is spending and where they're spending it. Most of the time they bring out these spending bills at the last minute, some of them 2,232 pages long, and they say, Merry Christmas, here you have to vote on it, do it now. We don't get a chance to even get feedback from our constituents, much less amend them to make them better. That ends now. A whole lot of these are reforms that Americans have long needed and Utahns have long demanded. We need to enact reforms like the REINS Act. That's the one that says we're going to have laws Not made by unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats, but by elected lawmakers who you can fire every few years. And I'm so grateful to you, to the people of Utah, for the trust that you've placed in me. The fact that you've given me the opportunity to represent you in the United States Senate. This is a charge that is both, thank you, this is both daunting and humbling. And it becomes even more so as the threats to life, liberty, property, prosperity, the American dream, the pursuit of happiness appear to be mounting every single day. But do you know what I think? I think we're up to the challenge. And I think we're going to take care of this. We're going to make tomorrow a better place. I love Utah. It's home to me, but it's much more than that. It's a place of refuge. It's a place of sanity in an increasingly insane world. It's a place where people understand where they fit in the universe, where we expect more of each other, in part because we understand the inherent dignity and eternal value of the individual human soul. That's what makes us liberty champions right here in Utah. And I'm so grateful to each and every person who's played a role in making this happen, to the countless people, many of whom I know well, others of whom I've never met, who have worked tirelessly to make this happen. From the bottom, even you, sir, from the bottom of my heart, I express the most deep and humble gratitude I possibly can. Thank you. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about what's going to happen. In the next few days, I look forward to getting back to work. I look forward to getting back to work and meeting up with my Republican colleagues back in Washington in the next few days. Now, I still think we can, I still think we will have the majority. And when we get the majority, the first thing that we need to do, before we do anything else, before we even hold leadership elections, we need to sit down and come up with a 2-year legislative plan. A plan that includes overhauling the spending process, bringing about regulatory reform, and a plan to bring about aggressive oversight and accountability to this out-of-control administration. Look, things are going to be different this time. They're going to be different because they must be different, because the stakes have never been higher, because they've never pushed the envelope this far to where people are hurting the way they are today. Instead of multi-trillion-dollar inflation-causing deficits, expect balanced budgets. Instead of a rubber stamp for Joe Biden, pushback and oversight. Instead of dictates, liberty. Instead of exploding debt, fiscal sanity. Instead of bureaucratic regulations, laws. Instead of excess from Washington, prudence. In place of chaos, order. Utah stands today as an example to America, just as America has long stood as an example to the rest of the world. You see, the American dream, it works here. It works here perhaps better than in any other part of this great land of ours. And that's for one simple reason. Here in Utah, we know that our rights, like our blessings, come from God and not from government. And we know the difference between those two things. Here in Utah, we know and we understand that the Constitution is there to keep government in its place. And we understand that it's not just there for the nice days, for the sunny days, for the easy days. It's there especially for the hard days. The days when progressives in Washington would otherwise tell us, you need to allow government to expand in ways that the Constitution could never authorize. We like our independence here. It's been earned through hard work and preserved tirelessly. We understand that strong communities and families are essential not only to our survival, but to our freedom itself. The best is yet to come for Utah and for America. We have promises to keep and miles to go before we sleep. This is where the real hard work starts. In fact, the end of an election cycle isn't the end of the process. It's the beginning of the hard work, the beginning of the debate that can happen only because of a victorious election. Tonight, you've brought me that, and I thank you. Thank you.
Big time, big time, big time.
I take seriously my oath to protect the Constitution. The people of this state and of our great country deserve nothing less, and that is precisely what they will get from me for the next 6 years. The best is yet to come. I can't wait. Thank you very much.
Very fiery speech. Sounded like a victory speech to us, but certainly he did not claim victory at this point.
Actually, he said he was victorious. He was given a victory and thanked the people of Utah. But to make mention, I think where you're going with this, Bob, is that race has not yet been called officially.
Has not been called yet. And in fact, we need to get the numbers from our political reporter, Ben Winslow. Ben, we've been waiting for Salt Lake County's numbers to dump into that race. Give us some perspective as to where we are now.
Well, funny, while you were just talking, I was just on the phone with Salt Lake County Clerk Sherry Swenson. She expects more ballot releases any minute now. They're just trying to get those last voting centers numbers populated in. They got hit really hard, according to Clerk Swenson, with vote by mail ballots, people dropping them off at the last minute just before the polls closed. But this is the state of the race right now. You can see Senator Mike Lee with about a 10 to 12 point lead there over Evan McMullin, the unaffiliated candidate right there in the race. That's where it is right now. We expect that to change. Utah County also expected to release more numbers. Let's go to some other races. This is one that the Associated Press has already called House District 1. Blake Moore with a very commanding lead there over his Democratic challenger, Rick Jones. In House District 2, covering a large portion of Utah, Congressman Chris Stewart, again enjoying a very comfortable lead over his many challengers in this race. House District 3, again, Congressman John Curtis, enjoying a sizable, commanding lead over his opponents in that race. And in House District 4, you saw Congressman Burgess Owens speaking, and he has 61% of the vote right now based upon this. And again, we are expecting Utah County to come in with even more numbers. Constitutional Amendment A, this has been a surprise, honestly. No one spoke against it in the official voter guide. This is to expand how much money the legislature could spend in a special session. Voters right now, it appears they don't like that. So they are voting it down at this point. That is certainly one of the surprises of this evening, where we have seen our federal races, obviously, with commanding leads for the Republicans and significant losses for the Democrats. We're also still tracking a number of big issues in local communities, including the Orem School District split, the Alpine School District bond. I'll be back with some more of those numbers, as well as some Salt Lake County races where we see Democrats in the lead. We'll bring that to you coming up.
Yeah, we can see those numbers change once again. Stay on the phone, Ben, with Sherry Swenson to see when we'll get more Salt Lake County numbers. Right. We're happy to have Jason Perry here with us tonight, political analyst and expert. Jason, you just listened to Mike Lee, what he admitted at the end, that he was given a victory tonight by the state of Utah. What do you make of that speech?
Well, it's early, but he's got a 12-point lead, and we're still waiting to see what these numbers are from Salt Lake County, which is the big one. This has not been a tremendously high turnout there in Salt Lake County, and when that happens, it tends to favor the Republicans. 12 points is a pretty big lead right now, which is why Senator Mike Lee is feeling like he can give a speech that feels very much like a victory speech. We'll be watching the returns closely. That's a pretty good lead considering how many votes have been turned in already.
mathematically, and I'd like to pull Ben in here if we can get a shot of him as well, but mathematically, I mean, do either one of you have any idea as to whether or not Evan McMullin can actually overtake Mike Lee at this point in the race? Ben? You there?
Yeah, at this point, we are still waiting to see what Utah County and Salt Lake County numbers look like. Sherry Swenson did tell me that they got hit hard with, again, a lot of people waiting till the last minute to turn in their mail-in ballots, which you can do. You can drop those off at a secure drop-box location. You can drop them off at an in-person polling location. I also want to point out, we have a number of counties that have not yet reported any results tonight. We have Summit, Wasatch, Duchesne, Carbon, and Daggett counties. They're not heavily populated counties per se. Summit is a little bit more populous, but we just haven't seen those numbers come in yet. So we just don't know what it's going to look like at this point. That could change a number of things, particularly when it comes to legislative races, local races, things like that. How it factors into the overall Senate race, not really sure. It looks like it's going to be a race where you're going to see your more populous counties weigh in. And a lot of them may still have ballots left to count. They're not done tonight. They pick up with a lot of those ballots that were dropped off again at the last minute. You've got Davis, you've got Weber, you've got Utah, you've got Salt Lake counties, you've got Washington County, which will pick up counting ballots again. These are all populous counties that could certainly shift things, but it just depends on which way voters voted. We don't know. We wait until they count.
You named Summit and Daggett, and which other county?
Wasatch, Carbon, and Duchesne counties. We are still waiting for results to come in from those counties, just seeing what the issues there are with why they haven't reported any results yet. We're still waiting them.
At least 3 of those counties seems to me lean Democratic, do they not?
Hard to say. Depends on the region of the state. Depends on the region of the county even. Really, Summit tends to lean more democratically, but there are certainly pockets that are more conservative. Wasatch has historically been more conservative. But when you're talking about a race like Lee McMullin, you don't really rely on Democrats in this. You're relying on Republicans to shift their allegiances to another conservative candidate, but maybe one that's not quite to the flavor of Senator Mike Lee if you're going for Evan McMullin.
We've got to wait. We've got to wait till all those votes come in. Ben and Jason, I want to hit on something I think you both will have very interesting insight. We already talked about what would happen on a national scale if McMullin went back to Washington, D.C. as an unaffiliated seat. Let's talk about what happens here in Utah, not if McMullin wins, but if he does end up losing. What has it done here in Utah? You know, he's not a Democrat, but he certainly rallied the Democratic Party in this race.
Well, without question, Evan McMullin brought Democrats along with him. They voted to send him forward instead of their own candidate. Many of them looks like they voted with him as well. But I will look at this race for the lessons it will provide. One is this experiment of putting an independent forward is the closest that anyone has come to taking out a Republican in decades. It's been a very long time. I think if you're Senator Mike Lee, you're looking at that very fact and going to look about how he is going to be leading and representing the state of Utah as well. I think we will take a lot of lessons from what just happened, even if Evan McMullin is not able to pull it off.
Well, to that point, though, the lesson we're learning with Evan McMullin coming very close to Mike Lee, and we don't have the final numbers yet. We don't know whether this is going to be a victory for Mike Lee for sure. However, the lesson we're learning isn't that contingent upon the fact that we have a former Republican going against a current conservative Republican. Isn't that a salient point in that whole point of yours?
So it is without question. And I think that this is going to be something the Democrats are going to have to look at as well, because they're not going to want to keep putting forward someone who's more on the right than they are. There's going to be a moment where they're going to have to look and see what was successful in this race and what they can do going forward. I think the Democrats' strategy in the coming elections is not to put someone that is not a Democrat forward. It's mostly the lessons that can be learned from this race about how you can most effectively go after an entrenched Republican.
Ben, you've been covering politics here in Utah for so long. This certainly has been a unique race. What do you think about it? And what have you heard maybe perhaps within the inner circles of the Democratic Party?
Well, right now, I think everybody's just waiting to see what happens at this point. You know, we haven't seen how it turns out, but certainly you may see some delegates who say, you know, we tried that. Let's try something else. Let's try running our own candidates who align with our values, our policy positions, our platforms, that kind of thing you might hear from the Democratic Party on this type of thing going forward. It just remains to be seen. I forgot to mention we still have Iron County also outstanding. Iron and Carbon counties did have some issues with ballot printing, so that could potentially be a wrinkle in this as we're waiting to see. And again, we're just waiting for more results to come in, and you know, things are still up there, up in the air right now. But right now, of course, as we've been reporting, Mike Lee still enjoying a very sizable lead, still a 12-point lead over independent challenger Evan McMullin.
And we are hearing right now that Evan McMullin is expected to take the podium at any moment at the Mid-Valley Performing Arts Center, where Emily Tenser is keeping track of things for us tonight. Emily, let's bring you in at this point.
Bob Kelly, it's been a long night. His supporters, his voters have been here for almost 4 hours now, and he's about to take this podium any minute. They've been waiting, watching results roll in nationwide. Really the big thing is they've just been watching that gap get narrower and narrower between the two candidates, really banking on those Salt Lake County numbers. They're feeling really hopeful. They went into today, they went into Election Day thinking this would be a close race, and they're still banking on that. And if McMullin were to win, this would be huge. Only Republicans have won the Utah Senate seat since 1976. So like I said, we should be hearing from him any moment now. So we're going to send it back to you guys in the studio, but we'll make sure to have you switch over and listen to him once he takes the stage.
All right, we're just going to stay right here because we do not want to miss Evan McMullin once he does take that podium. If we can bring back in Jason Perry, I wanted to get your perspective, Jason, on what you think. I know, Emily, we're still seeing you, but Jason, what do you think we are going to hear from Evan McMullin tonight?
Evan McMullin is going to thank all the people that supported him. He's going to talk about how he brought the concerns to the surface and was helping to control some of the dialogue about the policies and about Senator Mike Lee. What's interesting about his campaign is it was a lot about who he was not. It was a lot about Senator Mike Lee and his approach he has taken as our senator. I think he's going to talk about that too. And like he's done through his whole campaign, it's going to be a lot about finding common ground is what I think he's going to talk about, and about bringing people together. I think that's what he's going to talk about. And it's going to be hard for him to talk about making up those 12 points right now. But I think it's going to be not a concession speech, probably. It'll have some of that flavor, but he'll talk about how he was able to influence the dialogue in this particular race.
Jason, let's continue on with that thought of what we have learned from Evan McMullin's involvement in this race. There are only 2 senators right now currently in the U.S. Senate who are independent. They are, of course, Bernie Sanders of Vermont and Angus King of Maine. But they caucus with the Democrats. If Evan McMullin were to go back there, who would he caucus with? He says he's not going to caucus with either party, but how much good could he do?
Well, that's such a great comment. And I'll tell you what, if I had been giving him counsel in this race, what he should have said all along was, I'll caucus with whoever is in the majority. That would have been interesting. It's one thing, I know he was true to his campaign promise there to say, I will not caucus with either party. But for the state of Utah, you kind of want someone who's going to have a committee assignment, someone who's going to be able to bring some of those appropriations. I think that if he were just to look at this again in the future, that might be one thing to consider. He could have said that. I'll just go with whoever is in the majority. That way Utah is represented no matter what.
Jason, I have to say one thing that Evan McMullin did win tonight certainly is name recognition over the past 4 years as he's jumped into the political arena. Are we seeing his career just budding and what's to come?
Yeah, it's interesting to see the evolution of him as a candidate. You look back when he was running for president of the United States, and we wouldn't want to forget, he got just over 21% of the vote in the state of Utah. And at that time, people voted him precisely because of who he was not. He was not Donald Trump. He was not Hillary Clinton. People didn't know him very well, but they knew who he wasn't. This is a race that has changed that without question. They know him more. They know his policies. He's evolved as a candidate without question.
Let's go back over to Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow. And Ben, we understand we have some new numbers from or at least a declaration from the Associated Press.
Yeah, the Associated Press has called the 3rd Congressional District for Congressman John Curtis. Not a surprise given the huge numbers, the huge margin that he has there. You can see 67% of the vote for him. I expect you'll see the other races largely running the same. We also have gotten some new numbers that are populating in from Daggett and Iron County. They have finally reported in, so we could see some slight adjustments. They're not heavily populated counties, but we will see some slight adjustments there. Again, as I mentioned, we're expecting a further document release or a further release from Salt Lake, and now Utah County telling me it'll be about 11:30-ish before we start seeing some additional numbers from Utah County, which is a big one to be watching there. As far as outstanding counties, again, we're waiting for Summit, Wasatch, Duchesne, Carbon counties. We're at least waiting for them to report up some of the results, so that will factor things. Let's take a look at some of the other Senate races, if we have those, or the other races, if we have those available. Again, this is the U.S. Senate race, and what you've seen here is Iron and Daggett counties being populated into this. Mike Lee pulling ahead even further over unaffiliated candidate Evan McMullin there. This is another legislative race we've been watching. Incumbent Representative Rosemary Lesser appears to be hanging on to her seat in Weber County. They stopped counting a little bit earlier in the evening, so we expect they'll pick up again. That might shift. Orem School District Proposition 2. This is in Orem, and this is in terms of whether or not they would split from the Alpine School District, the largest school district in the state. So far, based upon those numbers, and again, that's still a little bit lower, they're running against Alpine School District bond, the largest school bond in state history, $595 million. You can see 53% against to 47% for. At least that's where it is right now.
Thanks, Ben.
We're going to interrupt you right there. Evan McMullin is taking the podium right now. Let's go and listen to what he has to say.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for waiting so patiently. I just placed a call to Senator Lee and acknowledge that he's won re-election. I truly hope that he upholds his oath to the Constitution during his upcoming term. It's so good to be here with family and friends who have become family. We have so much to be proud of. In this room, and all across Utah, independents, Republicans, Democrats, and members of third parties are gathered together, standing side by side in a cross-partisan coalition. Our coalition has come together to reject the politics of division and extremism. We have come together around the idea that the people should come first, not party bosses and not special interests. We've come together in a historic way, and this effort, our effort, has shown the country that there is another way forward, a more constructive way forward for our politics and for our nation. I have so much to be grateful for. To my amazing wife, Emily, and our 5 kids. I couldn't have done this without your support, wise counsel, and love. To my team, the scrappiest and hardest working campaign in the country. A team that reflects our coalition of independents, Democrats, and Republicans, all working together with a common purpose. Thank you. To everyone here tonight, and to everyone that has helped us along this incredible journey. Thousands of committed volunteers and supporters from all over Utah. You powered us every step of the way, and you've shown the country how strong we can be when we stand together. Thank you. And to the people of Utah, thank you for hearing me out at hundreds of events all over our great state. Thank you for your votes, for your contributions, and your hard work. I'm forever grateful. Over a year ago, we launched this campaign with a simple promise. We will be independent, truly independent, independent of party affiliation and favors owed to any party boss, independent of special interest money and influence, independent of the extremism that has broken our politics. And we invited everyone to join us. A lot of people were skeptical. Bringing independents, Democrats, and Republicans together just didn't seem possible to them. Many thought that the forces of party loyalty were too entrenched and that the walls of distrust had grown too high. But we believed. We knew that the primary dividing line in American politics today is not whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's not whether you're a conservative or a progressive. It's whether or not you're committed to our founding ideals, those found in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, that we are created free and equal. And therefore we have a democracy in which our leaders are chosen by the people through free and fair elections. We knew that Utahns wanted a politics of hope, leaders that unite, not divide, a future where families, congregations, and communities come together in the spirit of love and cooperation and are not split apart by the forces of fear and distrust. We believe Utahns of all parties would rally around this vision for a better way forward and come together to defend our Constitution, our democracy, and our future. Over a year later, we've kept our promise to be independent. We have not taken a penny from special interest groups. We have not bent the knee to any party boss. We have stood up to the extremist factions that threaten to tear our country apart. And Utahns have responded. Utah Democrats joined us. The United Utah Party joined us. Independents and Republicans joined us. Through tough conversations and a lot of hard work, Utahns of all political backgrounds forged bonds of trust, bonds built on our shared commitment to our Constitution, to our democracy, and to building a prosperous future for our children and our grandchildren. These bonds are centered on the idea and the clear reality that we cannot effectively solve the tremendous challenges that we face and keep America strong if any of us go it alone. To address issues like inflation and the high cost of healthcare, to protect our air and water, to maintain a strong national defense, and to uphold our democracy, we must come together. Divided, we are weak, and these challenges threaten our future. But united, we have the strength to overcome. Tonight's results are proof of the power of unity. Although our coalition did not prevail, we've done something here in Utah that hasn't been done in 50 years. We rejected the politics of division and extremism, and we united. Unity is what made this election the most competitive in nearly a half a century.
Yeah.
Now, some see our unity as a threat. An anti-democracy movement in America has tried to break the bonds we've built. They've tried to fracture this coalition because they know that our patriotic mission to bring people together is a threat to their power. We cannot allow their attacks to break us, and I know we won't. All throughout this campaign, Utahns have shown up to events across the country in backyards and dining rooms, knowing that they'll share space with people of the opposing parties and people with different beliefs. And through these events, we've built a community. Our coalition has shown that we have a lot more in common, and that is far more powerful than what we have in difference. In the face of doctored ads and vicious lies, our coalition stands united for truth. In the face of politically motivated violence, our coalition stands united for decency. In the face of attacks on the principles of democracy, our coalition stands united in defense of our founding ideals. And in the face of immense cynicism and extremism, our coalition offers a more constructive and hopeful way forward for our politics and for our nation. Now I know, now that we've come together, we must stick together, because America does stand at the crossroads between democracy and despotism. The American Republic will not be preserved by just one man or one woman or one campaign or one party. None of us have the votes to defend American democracy on our own. We must build coalitions like this one. We must work together. Great movements in American politics have always taken decades of hard work and sacrifice to realize change. And this time is no different. The struggle for our democracy is not just about one election. It is the defining challenge of our era. And it is what we must do together now in the coming years that will shape every era that follows. That is why our work is only just beginning. We must continue to build bonds of trust and friendship across party lines. It is the heavy lifting of American democracy, and it is the only way we can solve problems, fix our broken politics, and move our country forward. The choice before our state and nation now is between the promise of shared liberty or the false promise of tyranny. In the coming days, our struggle for the American Republic may enter a new, more critical phase. A phase in which fear, demagoguery, and ambitions of despotism cast their dark shadow over our nation. But remember that the darker the clouds, the more clearly light and truth show a better way forward. This is our cause. Utah, I am so proud of what we've accomplished together. We must never stop fighting for our shared liberty and for our future. Good night, and God bless the great state of Utah and this country we share.
Candidate Evan McMullin conceding defeat to Mike Lee, who is going back to Washington to represent the state of Utah in the U.S. Senate.
Right off the bat, making that concession statement, what do you guys make of Evan McMullin's speech tonight?
I was not expecting it so soon, but obviously the numbers that we're seeing here, that's a big gap to close. But what you also heard in there, which I thought was kind of interesting, is that you heard a little bit of more of a flavor of stay tuned. That you may see Evan McMullin in the future, maybe on other projects, maybe in other political involvement. At least that's some of the notes that I took.
Did you pick up on that, Jason?
Well, it's very clear. I mean, this was a concession speech, but it was also kind of a campaign speech. You just felt that all the words he said there kind of give the indication that he's not done. I'm not sure what's next for him, but it's clear he's not done with politics. That was obvious in everything he said there. It was mostly a reiteration of most of what we've been talking about through his whole campaign.
What will become of this independent movement? Are we going to see more candidates like him step up and be independent because of the success that he had?
So one of the things I was wondering about from this experiment here was really where we are with the two-party system. And through this campaign, we've had surrogates come in telling Republicans, you need to come home. And Mike Pence was here saying this just like he did in a previous election. And I think what's interesting from this is to the question about whether or not party still matters. Yes, it does.
Ben, what can Utahns expect throughout the night while they're sleeping? Will numbers continue to come in?
Yes, they will. And you could see still some changes, particularly when it comes to down ticket races, legislative races, some of the ballots and the ballot questions that voters have on their plates. We still have some counties that haven't reported at all. So when people wake up in the morning, you are likely to find some new results, particularly if we start seeing some of those counties like Summit County and Wasatch County coming in. Salt Lake County will update. Utah County, I'm told to expect the next ballot drop in about 20 minutes or so. So stay tuned for that. That could impact some of these critical ballot questions as well as these down ticket races that do directly impact people in their lives. Who represents them in the state house? Who represents them in the state senate? Who represents them at the county level? Stay tuned. We got a long way to go.
Things can change. Throughout the night, has there been any big surprises?
Yeah. I'll tell you, the only one that's a true surprise for me right now is Constitutional Amendment A.
It's the little amendment that we just didn't see.
I mean, no one wrote a for, no one wrote against.
Remind people what it is.
So this is allowing the legislature, because keep in mind we voted to allow them to call themselves into special session on their own, and now this allows them to appropriate from 1% up to 5% of the previous year's appropriations for them to have more access to funds that they are able to appropriate in one of those special sessions.
And why did they ask for that? I mean, this comes right after the pandemic.
Yeah, it does. I mean, what they talked about was when you have a pandemic, you need more flexibility. You get federal funds coming into the state, and we need the flexibility to be able to appropriate those funds to get to the right place.
And again, nobody argued for or against it. The Speaker of the House, I interviewed him. He was certainly in favor of this. But you also started to see a little bit of a voter pushback from people who said, well, if you're going to do this, it's a checks and balances issue. We want you to work with the governor. Certainly one of the groups that was a little more outspoken, even though, again, nobody spoke for it or against it in the official voter guide, the Alliance for a Better Utah, which is a left-leaning public policy group, they argued about the checks and balances. I started to hear that also from voters, just that there was that feeling of, we've given you a lot, and we don't want you to have it more. Again, we don't know if this is the final numbers, but it certainly looks like it's not doing well.
Well, and when you consider where the bond issue in the Alpine District is going at this point, that it's being voted down, the biggest bond ever to be voted on in Utah, it looks like Utahns just don't want to spend any money right now.
Except in the Salt Lake City Parks and Open Space bond, which appears to be winning by large numbers. Voters seem to like parks, they seem to like trails, they seem to like open spaces and being taxed on that.
I hope I don't catch you guys off guard, because I know you've been so closely watching our Utah races, updating our viewers on exactly who's in the lead, what's happening. But I've got to talk about on a national level quickly, the control of Congress. What can you comment on that? How is that going tonight?
I will be perfectly honest, I have been so centrally focused on Utah and on what's happening in my own backyard. I have not been paying attention to that. That is for the national people.
It is for the time. I haven't been seeing any of those concession speeches like we saw early on this one. Those are going to continue through the night, I believe.
Well, and Utah took such a center stage on a national platform with the Lee McMullen race.
Yeah. It's just so interesting to see the state of Utah being in play. I mean, the outcome, was not as close as some were thinking, but it is curious and also important for the state of Utah to be seen as a state that is important in terms of our approach, and even with this experiment on an independent candidate.
And what other politicians in what other states are taking note of what happened here tonight?
Yes,
absolutely. And speaking of other states, I've got the New York Times front page here. It's saying, the headline says, race for Congress is tight with no sign of a red wave, that they had been watching for up to this point. We see in Pennsylvania that Dr. Oz lost to, it looks like he's lost to Mr. Fetterman, who the lieutenant governor there in the state of Pennsylvania, and that seems to be indicative of what's going on around the country right now.
Well, you gentlemen are fabulous. We can sit here and talk for many more hours, but Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow, our political expert and analyst Jason Perry, thank you so much, and Bob Evans, as always. Great to be here with you tonight.
It's always great to be with you. The final numbers in the biggest race here in Utah, the Evan McMullen challenge to Mike Lee, 55%, rounding up just a little bit, 55% for Mike Lee, 42% for Evan McMullen, with Evan McMullen conceding defeat to Senator Lee tonight.
We're going to let you go to bed, but we will continue to watch the numbers throughout the night. Wake up with us tomorrow on Good Day Utah starting at 4:30 a.m. Scan that barcode. You can get real-time results throughout the night as well. Good night, everyone.
Good night.